Well, finals are here, but on the bright side, it's week 14 in the NFL, so we're here to talk about some football. I'm Ben Parsons.
I'm Grace Edinger.
I'm Ethan Styll.
And we're going to kick it on off with some hot topics going around the NFL right now. The first one being, should Gronk have been suspended for more than one game?
I personally think he should be. It's like when you go back and look at it, there was clear hesitation, or not necessarily hesitation, but there was a break in between when the play ended and when he did it. So I think when you look at where they made contact and just take all the context into it, I think it should be more than one game. One game's kind of like the shtick that everyone's going towards right now, though. A lot of people, if they're getting suspended, it is being one game. Mm-hmm. So I think it coincides with a lot of the other things they're doing, but I personally think that was a bit more warranting of more games.
I completely agree. Gronk did apologize afterwards, but even Tre'Davious White came out and said it was a joke that he only got suspended for one game, so probably more than one, definitely.
Yeah, I found it ridiculous that Gronk got the same suspension that, Juju Smith-Schuster did for a hit that was pretty much legal, and they both got one. And they both got one game, but I think this is a reoccurring issue in the NFL where they don't necessarily know exactly how to penalize people, and we've seen it all throughout the last couple of years. Right. But moving on, in funnier news, the one Cleveland Brown fan said he would throw a parade if the Browns don't win a game this whole season. I personally find that awesome, but do you guys think they're going to win a game, or at this point, what do you guys think?
I think I'm pretty sure the next game is against Green Bay, and I don't. As far as Green Bay goes, I don't see them winning their next game, and probably not after that either.
Yeah, I think it's funny. They did this last year too, right?
Yeah.
And it was was it week 14 or 13? One or the other. It was close to the end of the season when they won that game last year. So, do I want it to happen? No. I want to see the Browns succeed one day, please, just for me. But I don't have a horse in the race, so it'd be funny to see.
Yeah, but in typical Cleveland fashion, it'd be fun if they threw a parade for being how bad they were this year. But yeah, they've had a bunch of issues with their front office, and they're cleaning house yet again.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully they'll be able to play better next year, because their fans have been pretty sad, to say the least.
Record right there.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. The next question I got is, Kirk Cousins is about to get paid this offseason, but the question is it going to be by the Redskins or some other team?
Well, when you look at it, you got to think who needs a quarterback. And a lot of teams are already going and getting their quarterback right now.
Yeah.
You've seen that a lot of trades happened, and there's definitely teams who need a quarterback. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be a super wide race, a super broad race. Do I think the Redskins will keep him? I think they should. Will they? I haven't seen any promise. And with the record, Because, a quarterback can play great. He's top 2 or 3 in certain stats in the league. But if you don't get wins, and, this is his, third full season now? It's, you got to start to look. And this is a team who's already not wanted to pay him initially.
Yeah.
They wanted to see him prove himself. And, yes, like I said, stat-wise, he has. But the record's mediocre again, like it has been for decades. So I honestly don't know. I'm going to have to say no if I have to pick an answer, though.
I also do think they should. He's one of those players that you don't really have to worry about him acting out, doing stuff that's going to hurt the team. And his stats, he has proved himself. I think as far as their record goes, that's more of a team effort, not necessarily him. And even if they don't re-sign him, like Ethan said, there's plenty of teams looking for quarterbacks. Yeah. I'm sure somebody will pick him up.
Yeah, you have to look at it from the Redskins' standpoint is, do they want to go back to searching for another quarterback? Because for most of, at least mine and Ethan's lives, they have been searching for a quarterback, and we have seen a multitude of them, going back to Sam Beck, if you even want to say names like that. But going back to Kirk Cousins, is that I really think that this season the record isn't necessarily on him. The team got obliterated by injuries, and he's still performing. The defense was great early on in the season, but then they just lost it because of how many injuries they had. So record-wise, his record is kind of down there, but performance-wise, like you both said, he has the stats. So I really think he deserves to get paid, but I'm gonna agree with Ethan because knowing the Redskins as I do, they do not like to pay people. Or Daniel Snyder doesn't like to pull out the checkbook. I'm sorry, but he just doesn't. Yeah. So it's gonna pain me to say this, but I think he'll be in a different jersey next year, and it's gonna be interesting to watch.
So real quick before we move on, I was doing some research a while ago, and I think in my lifetime, so since '98, there has been no Redskins quarterback who has started more than 3 full years, or more than 2 full years. So if Kirk finishes out the season, he will have that record in the past almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of relates more to what you said at the beginning there. But it's just the question: do we want to go, or do the Redskins, want to go searching for another quarterback?
I mean, but going off of what you said, that's one of the reasons why Kirk Cousins is already the franchise leader in a lot of these things and a lot of records, because the Redskins haven't been able to hold a quarterback, whether it's Jason Campbell or him getting hurt, or pretty much anybody. Oh my gosh, you can go down the list. It's almost as bad as the Browns. Like everybody throws shade at the Browns for how many quarterbacks they've had in the last 20 years. Look at the Redskins; it's nearly just as bad. Yep. But moving on, so Eli Manning is back at the helm of the Giants. No harm, no foul, I guess, from what happened a week ago. Is that the right move?
I think it's the right call. I don't have a ton to say on this. I just think nothing against Geno Smith, right?
Yeah.
Nothing against Geno Smith. I loved watching him in college. He hasn't done a ton in the NFL, but I think you got to stick to your guy at this point in the season. There's 3 games left. It's not like, oh, well, we're getting him reps for next season. They don't know what they're going to do next season. Neither of those quarterbacks may be there next season. Yeah. Geno Smith isn't necessarily the guy. Who has confidence in Geno Smith being the guy? And maybe the management does. Maybe the coaches do. But, well, coaches, McAdoo's out.
Yeah, they're all gone.
So I think it's the right move for the end of the season. Just stay with the guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think even if they were going to move on from Eli Manning, they definitely should have waited till the end of the year. The way they handled that was a little iffy, but I definitely think it was the right move. He's done so much for this team. I definitely think it was right to put him back at starting position.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. I thought it was rather ridiculous that in the first place that he was benched, because that man has done everything for the New York Giants in the past, like, I don't know, since 2004. So that's what, 13, 14 years he's been their starting quarterback, and yet you just benched him for literally no reason. I think it spoke volumes that the Giants finally fired Jerry Reese and Ben McAdoo for that decision. But moving on, we're going to talk about the NFC playoff picture, because we're not going to be back until the playoffs have already been almost decided at that point, because of school starting late this year. So we're going to talk about the NFC right now. So who do you guys think is going to get that home field advantage out of the Eagles, Vikings, Rams, and maybe even the Saints? But the Saints kind of slipped up a bit recently. So what do you guys think?
Looking at the picture for me, I think the Vikings have the they're in number 1 in my head.
Yeah.
They're number 1 in my head because Rams, Eagles play each other. Vikings have a tough matchup coming up with the Panthers, but that means if the Eagles lose, they're down to 3 losses. Vikings will only have 2 if they beat the Panthers, which I'm going to assume they will. Not counting the Panthers out, I'm just in this scenario, I am. And then the Rams, Seattle's only 1 game behind them. Seattle can win that division. So when you look at it, especially if the Rams lose to the Eagles, which I think, I haven't looked at stats, but I think they're favored to lose. Favored to lose, that's a weird phrase. But so I'm going to say the Vikings, number 1 seed, and then whoever wins the game this week gets a 2 seed.
I'm going to go with the Eagles just because I really want to see a Pittsburgh and Philadelphia Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. I do agree with the Seattle situation. They usually are one of those teams that definitely by the end of the season are starting to kind of pick up their pace. So the Rams should definitely be a little concerned about that.
Yeah, I would agree with you actually. I think the Vikings are gonna be the 1 seed purely for the fact that I do have the Eagles losing this week, and I really want to see Minnesota have a chance to play in the championship in Minnesota, and then if they win that game, they get to play in Minnesota the next week or 2 weeks later in the Super Bowl, and that'd be the first time ever that happened. But looking at, like you guys said, the Rams are in a little bit of a hot spot because their schedule gets a little tougher down the road. And then if Seattle keeps on winning, next thing you know, the Rams are in the wild card instead of winning their division, even though they are better than a lot of those teams in the wild card scenario. But I think the other thing when it comes to the NFC that you have to talk about is the NFC South, because it has, and after Thursday, it has got even closer with the Saints being 9-4 right now. The Panthers are 8-4, and they play the Vikings this week, so that could easily be a loss. They could win. We're not dissing the Panthers here. They do have an opportunity to win, but the way that Minnesota is playing this year, it's going to be a tough uphill battle for them in that one. And they have the Falcons sitting at 8-5. So what do you guys think is going to happen with this division heading down the stretch?
Go ahead.
I think, well, first of all, it is very close right now. So I imagine that all these teams are kind of, their nerves are probably growing a little bit. Just everybody trying to get a spot. I personally am very impressed by the Saints. I don't think anyone really expected them to kind of, after the past couple of years, they've just kind of been mediocre, haven't had their game plans together. And this year, I think they've definitely exceeded everyone's expectations. So I definitely think they'll come out ahead of the Panthers and the Falcons.
I mean, that can be said by every division leader right now.
Yeah,
the
true.
Rams, the Eagles, the Vikings.
No one thought any of those teams would be winning at this point. It's like, what? Are you kidding me?
I think it'll come down to the Saints-Falcons game,
Yeah.
Week 17. I think the Panthers will lose to the Vikings. I've had to put money on it. I don't know their schedule after that. I'm assuming a Tampa game, maybe Atlanta once
They have
more.
Atlanta one
They have
more.
Atlanta once more. So if Atlanta loses to the Panthers and the Panthers don't lose to the Vikings, I mean, it's certainly doable. But I think it's the winner of that Saints-Falcons game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because, to be quite honest, I think, and we'll get to the wild card too, I think that 2 out of these 3 teams are going to make the playoffs, and I really think that, for me right now, I hate to say it for the hometown team, but I think the Panthers are the most likely to drop out of that spot because the Panthers do have Minnesota, and they also have to play Aaron Rodgers back, and they'll be fighting for a playoff spot. And then, and Eli's shaking his head at me, so please stop, and then they have to go and play the Falcons I almost said in Minnesota, wow, in Atlanta at that new stadium, and that's going to be a fantastic matchup too. So I really think that the Panthers have a shot to finish the season 10-6 or 9-7, even 9-7. So when I look at these teams, they just have the opportunity to beat up on each other. And the team that has the most control over their destiny is Atlanta, because they have so many division games ending their season. I think they had 5 out of their last 6 games are against divisional opponents, and so far they've done so well. And I really think they're going to step it up and overtake the Panthers. And then if the Panthers don't get enough wins, next thing you know, you got teams like Seattle and the Packers and the Lions right behind them. But like, speaking of those teams, out of the teams that are in the wild card hunt, who do you think's who has the best opportunity to kind of make a run out of the 6-6 teams?
I'm looking at Dallas right now because they play Oakland 2 weeks from now. I'm not sure who they play this week. Do you know?
They play the Giants this week, so that's a win.
Okay, that's a win. They play Philly in Week 17, who may be resting their starters.
Yeah, barring
Philly's, they've clinched it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So Dallas can get 3 of the next 4 wins, and I don't know who the last opponent is. But if, excuse me, if the Panthers or the Falcons slip, if Seattle slips, if any 2 of those 3 teams slip, can't be one of it. 2 teams have to slip. I think the Cowboys have the best chance. Yeah, the Packers have the Browns coming up, but also I'm assuming they have a game left with either Minnesota or...
I think they do. I think they have one more left.
One of the other teams in that division. The Lions are right there in it. So if the Lions and Packers play each other, they're sitting at the same record. It's, like someone said earlier, 5% chance to get in. So that's my reasoning for going with the Cowboys.
I'm going to go with the Packers. If Aaron Rodgers weren't coming back, I probably would not. But he's such a staple to that team. He brings them together. He's like a true leader. I definitely think that with him back, they're good to go.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If he comes back and he's raring to play, let's see. I'm giving them the win this week, and we know that might give them that might be a little bit of a curse. But I'm giving them the win against the Browns, so that he comes back. They're 7-6 heading against the game against the Panthers. I really do think that would be That would be a great scenario for them. And when he's on that roster, they just play so much better. So out of the teams that are 6-6, I think they have the best chance to make a run. But I also would not sleep on the Lions because I do think they'll figure it out again as they did early in the season, and then they kind of lost it for a little bit. But yeah, that kind of wraps things up for our NFC playoff picture. We'll get to the AFC later in the show. But for now, we're going to send it on over to Kevin Blakicki with the injury update.